The Khalil Herbert trade is officially in the books. And in the end, yeah, it was something. We traded a 7th round pick, pick 233 for Khalil Herbert. And to be honest, at the time, we needed it. Okay, Zach Moss went down with injury. Chase Brown was great, but then Chase Brown would eventually get injured. We were kind of running out of running backs at some point. So we definitely needed him to some capacity because Zach Moss went down in week 8 and he was out for the rest of the season. And then Chase Brown, he actually did end up playing every single game. Got hurt in week 18 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, sadly. Actually, no, he got hurt in week 17 and then didn't play week 18 because of injury. In the end, Khalil Herbert had 112 snaps, which shout out to him for that. Definitely filled in on a position we needed him to. He only had 1 total fumble in all the time we had him. That was actually his first snap for us against the Ravens. Had 114 total yards for us. Caught 8 receptions on 9 targets for 21 yards. He really didn't do much of anything. He actually did have 130 total yards, period. He had 16 yards and a touchdown with the Chicago Bears before we got him, which obviously is a very big downgrade from his previous years with Chicago, where he put up 611, 731, and even 433. It definitely was a trade that didn't work out in our favor if you really break it down. We gave up a 7th round draft pick. They gave up a guy who really did piss poor nothing. Now, of course, in the end, Khalil Herbert did go to the Indianapolis Colts. He just got paid. So who knows? Maybe he'll work out for the Indianapolis Colts. For us, he wasn't really the guy. Now, the player that the Chicago Bears took in replacement of that 7th round pick that we had, so this is they actually traded back to 235, but this was our 7th round pick. Ironically enough, they took a running back. So we traded a 7th for a running back, and in reality, they took a running back with that 7th round pick. And it's going to be Kyle, do not know how to say your last name, guy. Put up 1,279 yards this year, 1,263 the year before that, and then 445 yards before that. What college is this? Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Rutgers University. So we'll see how this ends up turning out when it comes to this player and how good this player ends up becoming. I'm going to guess that, maybe he's okay, but he just has to beat out 114 yards and he automatically wins. So right now, technically, we are winning this trade by default of the fact that their player has not played yet. But once their player accumulates a total of 114 yards, it's over. We lost the trade. Yeah, this was definitely not that great of a trade. In the end, it's a 7th round pick, okay? How many 7th round picks end up becoming superstars or crazy players? Pretty close to none. It's not a situation where it's like we gave up like a 3rd or 4th round. We gave up a 7th round pick. It's not that big of a deal in the end. Yeah, we're going to lose, but in reality, we needed the running back at the time that we did it, We needed someone, and we took a shot, and we hoped it would work out. At that time, I wish we would have traded for an offensive lineman. There was a couple offensive linemen we could have traded for, and I think it would have been a better idea to have traded for an offensive lineman instead. In the end, we at least got someone, and we tried to make our team better. Something that Cincinnati has not done many times during the season, which is trade for someone and try to make the team better. So it is nice to see that they actually kind of went away from their typical mentality and said, hey, we're going to try to make this team better by going out there and getting someone new. So they could have just went on free agency or went with Kendall Milton, which in the end we ended up going a little bit with. But they could have just said, hey, we're going to go with, whoever's on the roster. But we kind of went against our, grain that we normally go with. And, in the end, it didn't work out. I will say so far, Cincinnati has been doing that a lot recently, which I think we can all be very happy about. with the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins signing. That was them going against, the principles of not wanting to pay that much money for 2 wide receivers, and they did it in the end. They also got Mike Gesicki because Joe Burrow wanted him, and I think that they definitely, the front office has done everything possible to tick us off as football fans, but there are some positives I think that they have done that, definitely needs to be recognized. Getting rid of, Frank Pollock, humongous W there. I think they kind of, twinkled their toes a little bit too long, just like they did with the Chase thing. They could have signed Chase last year, but okay, this is not a hate video toward the front office. My point is, though, I think there is some positive things. I think Al Golden is a really good positive. I think Scott Peters is a positive. New defensive line coach and linebacker coaches are positives. So hopefully we continue these positives. And at the end of the day, this draft class that we just drafted potentially could be the first Super Bowl in Cincinnati's draft class, which is crazy to say. It's insane to say out loud. But guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. Let's just get back to work. We are now in this little gray area where the season's there's nothing going on. So it's going to get a little crazy. May 14th is when we get the schedule release, and that's when we find out more information about next year. So, or I guess this upcoming season. This upcoming season. Hoo day!